Hello and welcome to this Q&A to mark getting to 100,000 subscribers. That just still blows me away, so thank you so much for getting me there and continuing to support me. So let's answer some of your questions. Loka asks, are you going to do a video where you try and find the first hit song to use the now ubiquitous 1-5-6-4 progression? The earliest song with that progression I can think of is Let It Be. So you're talking about the famous 4 chords, the Axis of Awesome chords that appear to be in so many modern pop songs. And Let It Be is certainly an early example. I know that Scott McKenzie's San Francisco, which came out maybe 2 years before Let It Be, that has those chords in it.
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.
And I'm pretty sure you will find a few more early examples, but it is true that that chord progression became increasingly more popular as we entered the 80s and the 90s and the noughties. It is oddly less common in the 50s and the 60s, but it is out there. So that said, if any of you know any early examples of the 1-5-6-4 chord progression, stick them in the comments below, because I'd really be interested in seeing which is the earliest example that we can find. Fritz van der Holst asks, do you think being able to play from scores chord sheets restricts creativity? Being able to play from chord sheets isn't something that restricts creativity. It's only something that restricts you if you let it restrict you. Like, yes, learning how to play songs from chord sheets and that you might see, okay, all songs seem to use the chords 1, 4, 5 and 6 a lot. The bars are often grouped in sets of 4. All of these songs are in 4/4. You might start noticing the common threads that happen across most pop songs, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow those guidelines as well. You don't have to write all your songs like the songs that you've been learning. And if anything, by learning theory, you're learning how to analyze existing songs. And by doing that, you can see what those songs have already done, and therefore you could do something different. You could think, right, that song has got the chord 1, 4 and 5 grouped in bars of 4. So I'm going to use the chords 1, 7 and 6 grouped in bars of 3. You know, it lets you think outside the box because it makes you realise where the box is and where it's not. Neo Radio asks, when did you become interested in music? I've really enjoyed listening to music from quite a young age. I remember when I was about 9 or 10, I used to really enjoy when my dad used to put music on, and he used to play it really loud, and he used to annoy everyone in the house apart from me. I used to actually quite look forward to it. He would put on A Night at the Opera by Queen or Magical Mystery Tour by the Beatles, and I just used to love listening to that music. I think really it was that early exposure to music from both of my parents that just gave me a love of music for life, really. Opaque Drawings asks, how do you feel about Tame Impala? Tame Impala are probably one of my favourite acts that are around at the moment. Currents was my first exposure to them. I was blown away by how good the album is. It's a brilliant album. And then I got into Lonerism. I'm not as much of a fan of the first album, but I am really excited for the new album that I think is due out quite soon. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Tame Impala. Cathal Murphy asks, which of your videos are you most proud of? Every video I've done, generally there's something in there which after publishing I thought maybe I shouldn't have put that in there, or maybe I could have done that a bit better. But the one video that sticks out to me that I'm really quite pleased with is my analysis of the Pyramid Song by Radiohead. I was just really happy with the way that I got across my point and described the rhythm. I feel like I took something that was reasonably hard to understand and broke it down in a way that most people could get something out of. So yeah, that would be the one I'm most proud of, I think. Anton Lushakin has a few questions, the first of which is, do you love collect vinyls, tapes or any other physical media? So yeah, I do collect physical music. I have a reasonably big CD collection, which I've categorised by genre. But nowadays I largely collect vinyls, of which I have a small collection at the moment. And I actually have one tape as well, which is by my friend's band Fickle Friends. Next he asks, are you a metalhead? What's the heaviest thing you've ever listened to? So I'm definitely not a metalhead. I've never really got into metal. It's not to say I don't enjoy it, but to be honest, the heaviest music that I've ever listened to out of choice is probably Rage Against the Machine. It's not that I don't want to listen to metal, it's just one of those genres that I've never really been introduced to. So if you can think of some metal music which is a good gateway into it, then please suggest it, because I would be interested in listening to more. What's your favourite jazz album? So it's a bit predictable, but my favourite jazz album is going to be Giant Steps by John Coltrane. When I was at uni, I really got into listening to Coltrane, and he was basically the soundtrack to which I wrote my dissertation. And you also mentioned jazz pianists, which jazz pianists I like. I personally prefer slightly older jazz, as in more down the trad route than the modern jazz era. So although I have a lot of admiration for players like Bill Evans, for example, I'm more in the camp of the bluesier sort of guys. Maybe Oscar Peterson would be a good example. And the last of Anton's questions, what do you like to do besides music? What are your hobbies? So I have answered this question before, but it does give me an opportunity to plug something that I want to sell to you at some point, which is my book. I've been writing a book for the last 4 years, and it's not a non-fiction book, it's fiction, it's a novel. It's based in the not too distant future, and it's heavily inspired by current political events. And as you can imagine, music is quite an integral theme of it. So I do think it's something that a lot of you will find interesting. I'm hoping to have it available at some point next year, probably nearer the tail end of next year. But yes, keep an eye out for my book at some point. Braxton T asks, how long does it take for you to make your videos? So it can vary, but generally it takes about 10 hours to write and research the script, which in my opinion is actually the easiest bit. Then it might take up to an hour to film it, although it can be done quicker than that. And then the editing is the bit which can take ages, particularly for a longer video. So recently I put out a video that's quite close to the 20-minute mark, and that one took almost twice as long as a normal video because, you know, it's almost twice as long as a normal video. It can take me up to 30, 40 hours to edit a video, and obviously I'm not doing that in one sitting, I'll do that over the course of a week. But it's one of those tasks where you think you're getting close to the end, and then 10 hours later you're still sat there and you still think you're getting close to the end. It just keeps going forever until you finally render it, and hopefully the video is successful and doesn't get taken down by copyright strikes. So yes, the videos take a long time, but it's thanks to people like you that I keep doing them, so thank you so much for your support. Barry Berry asks, David, do you know if there is any rap song with odd time signature? That is a really good question, because the majority of rap music is in 4/4, but I can imagine rap music that's in an odd signature being really interesting. I'm sure it exists. I can't think of any examples, but then again, I'm not particularly well versed in rap music. I can definitely imagine something in 6/8 or 12/8, but once again, I'll put it out to you guys. If you can think of an example of rap music that's not in 4/4, then leave it in the comments below. Michael Razek, sorry, I've definitely said that wrong, asks, who sang the R's in A Day in the Life? So I know the bit you're talking about. I think I'm going to play a very short clip of it because otherwise this video will get copyright striked. It's this bit. And to be honest, I've never really given it much thought to which Beatles sang that part. On listening, it sounds like John to me. It just sounds like his way of singing, but I briefly looked it up and I couldn't find any conclusive evidence either way, so I guess you'd have to ask Paul McCartney himself. And I thought I'd leave this question to last because it's potentially the most technical. Graham May asks, I was wondering if you could explain in some meaningful way why adding a note to an existing interval can completely change its colour. For example, a major 7 interval is pretty ghastly, but add the third in and it sounds wistful. So yes, what I think is happening is when you have just a major 7, then that's the only interval you're hearing. And the major 7 on its own, yes, is quite a dissonant interval. But anyone who's ever played a major 7 chord knows it can actually sound quite smooth and interesting and pleasant. So the difference is when you have the third in there, for example, so imagine with C major 7, so we've got the C and the B, that's our major 7, and now we're adding the third above the C, so that's the E. So now we're not actually hearing just the major 7, we're hearing 3 different intervals. We're hearing the major 7, like we were before, but we're also hearing a major 3rd, and we're hearing a perfect 5th. A major 3rd and a perfect 5th are 2 of the most consonant and pleasant sounding intervals that we have. So now the dissonance of the major 7 has been diluted. You've got 1 part dissonance and 2 parts consonance. So if we flesh that out even further and make this into a proper C major 7 chord, so we've got C, E, G and B, we've still got that major 7 interval, C to B, the dissonant one. We've got the nice major 3rd here. We've got the perfect 5th between the E and the B. And now the G is introducing even more intervals. The G is creating a major 3rd between the G and the B. It's creating a perfect 5th between the C and the G. And it's creating a minor 3rd between the E and the G. So you can see how the more notes you add to a chord, exponentially the more intervals you're going to get. And if the intervals that you're adding to the chord are consonant ones, they're going to hide or dilute the more dissonant ones. So that's all the questions, but just to finish off with another massive thank you to everybody who's got me this far on YouTube. YouTube has seriously started becoming quite a significant part of my life and my job. So, you know, that's something that I couldn't have imagined would actually happen when I first set out doing this a year and a half ago. And I'm just so excited to see where this will all go and to see how the support will continue to grow, because everyone who's contacted me so far has been so pleased with what I'm doing, and I'm just so glad that you're all finding it valuable. So thank you so much for your support, and you know, maybe I'll make another Q&A when we hit 200k. Let's wait and see. Cheers. And as always, an extra thanks goes to Adam Granger, Andre Sainz-Diaja, Andrew Brown, Andy Deacon, Austin Barrett, Bob McKinstry, Brittany Parker, Chris Cabell, Kieran Bennon, Daniel Long, Darren Harvey, David DeFundifer, Darren Wicks, Eleanor Skorchenko, Esben Hansen, Eugene Leroy, Eyes, FD Hodor, Golf House, Graham Beards, Guillermo Latona, James Ko, J.A. Kockensparger, Joe Vassom, Jonas Soderstrom, Jonathan Banks, Justin Vigor, Lavender Rose, Meg Fellows, Melody Composer Squared, Nancy Gillard, Nicholas, Orlando Bernard, Paul Muller, Paul Pazel, Peter Dunphy, Roger Clay, Schnitzelcraft, Steve Daly, T. Newport, Tim Beaker, Timothy Payne, Toot, and Vladimir Kodakov.